Ambassador Kethvar had spent 3 decades studying the galactic archives on Deathworld species, and every entry filled him with the same primal terror that had kept the Velairy alive for millennia. Creatures born from worlds where survival was a daily battle against impossible odds. Beings forged by gravity that could crush bones, atmospheres that burned lungs, and predators that hunted for sport rather than sustenance. The Velairy homeworld of Serenity was a garden paradise. Gentle rains, abundant fruit trees, herbivorous creatures that grazed peacefully in meadows that stretched beyond horizons. His people had evolved as gatherers and philosophers, their greatest conflicts arising from debates over poetry and the proper way to cultivate flowering vines. When the war came, it arrived like a nightmare made manifest. The Crexthal horde swept through the outer colonies with mechanical precision. Each of their warriors stood 3 meters tall. Their carapaces evolved to withstand the crushing gravity and toxic storms of their homeworld. They consumed other species not for sustenance, but for the simple pleasure of conquest. 17 peaceful civilizations had already fallen to their advance. The Galactic Council's response had been predictable. Emergency sessions, strongly worded resolutions, and ultimately, the deployment of their most advanced automated defense systems. The machines lasted exactly 4 hours and 37 minutes against the Horde. That's when someone suggested the unthinkable. "We need to contact the humans," Counselor Vexena had whispered, her voice trembling with the implications. "They're the only Deathworld species in the Alliance." The debate that followed nearly tore the Council apart. How could they trust one group of monsters to fight another? The humans came from a world the archives classified as extreme hazard. Approach with caution. Their planet featured crushing gravity, violent weather systems, massive predators, and worst of all, the humans themselves, apex predators who had dominated their entire food chain through intelligence, persistence, and an inexplicable tendency to pack bond with anything that moved. Ambassador Kethvar had volunteered to make first contact, despite every instinct screaming at him to flee. He expected to meet savage warriors, brutal killers shaped by their hellish world into living weapons. Instead, he met Captain Rebecca Torres. She was smaller than he'd expected, barely reaching his shoulder, with kind eyes and a gentle smile that somehow made her more terrifying than any snarling beast. When she offered him tea, an apparently sacred human ritual involving heated plant matter, he nearly fainted. "So," she said, settling in her chair with casual grace, "you need help with some bullies." The next 6 months shattered every preconception Kethvar held about Deathworld species. The humans didn't arrive as conquerors or saviors. They came as partners. They studied Velairy culture with genuine curiosity, learned their languages, and showed interest in their poetry. When human children visited the refugee camps, they played games with Velairy younglings and shared drawings of their respective homeworlds. But when the Crexthal arrived at Serenity's borders, the humans transformed. Kethvar watched from the command center as Captain Torres coordinated the defense. Her voice remained calm and pleasant, the same tone she used when discussing literature or sharing meals. But her orders unleashed a coordinated response that turned the space around Serenity into a graveyard for Horde vessels. The humans fought with a combination of tactical brilliance and savage creativity that defied belief. They used the Crexthal's own aggression against them, turning their bloodlust into strategic disadvantages. Human marines boarded enemy ships not with the mindless fury of Deathworld beasts, but with the calculated precision of persistence predators who had spent millions of years learning to outthink their prey. When the last Horde vessel limped away from Serenity's system, Captain Torres found Kethvar in his quarters, still trembling from what he'd witnessed. "The galaxy was wrong about Deathworlders," she said softly, sitting beside him. "We're not monsters because our world was harsh. We're protectors because someone had to be. Our planet taught us that the strongest survive not by crushing the weak, but by making sure everyone survives together." Years later, as Ambassador Kethvar signed a formal alliance between the Velairy and humanity, he reflected on the greatest lesson his species had learned. The most dangerous predators in the galaxy were also capable of being the most loyal friends. The humans hadn't just saved his people. They had shown them that strength and gentleness could coexist in the same heart. The galaxy had feared Deathworlders for good reason. But perhaps, Kethvar thought, fear had blinded them to something even more powerful than a predator's strength, a protector's love.